Good day, ma'am. I am Riza Jane C. Labarete, and I am going to report the self from sociological perspective and the self from anthropology perspectives. So first, I am going to discuss the self from sociological perspective. So first, what is sociology? Sociology is the study of human behavior. It also refers to the social behavior, society, patterns of social relationship, social interaction, and culture that surrounds everyday life. In the realm of sociology, the self interacts with the social world. Initially, the self is self-absorbed and is just concerned on its own. So, there are also sociological theories of the self. First is the theory of the self-development by George Herbert Mead. Sociologist George Herbert Mead argued that the self is not biological but social. Self is something that is developed through social interaction. The self is developed as one grows and ages. Self, therefore, is concentrated by directly engaging in the world through interaction and through reflection on those interactions. Mead also explained that self has two parts, self-awareness and self-image. He proposed the idea that the self developed through social interaction, that social interaction involves the exchange of symbols or language, and that understanding of symbols involves being able to take the role of another. So there are also stages of development according to George Mead. First is the imitation or the preparatory stage. In this stage, a child imitates the behavior of his parent like sweeping the floor. They have no ability to imagine yet how others see things. Next is the play stage. At this age, children become aware that there is a difference between himself and the role that he is playing. They begin to try to take on the role of other person by acting out grown-up behavior, dressing like adults, and etc. And the third one is the game stage. The child comes to see himself from the perspective of other people. They learn to understand complex interactions involving different people with variety of purpose. The child must be aware of his relationship to other people and place himself in their rules in order to appreciate his particular role in game. And the last one is generalized others. In this stage, children develop, understand, and learn the idea of the common behavioral expectations of the general society. They are able to imagine how they are viewed by one or many. Mead pointed out that self is in this stage is being developed. Next theory is the looking glass self by Charles Cooley. Charles Cooley pioneered one of the most prominent sociological perspectives of the self. He asserted that individuals develop their concept of self by looking at how others perceive them, hence coined his theory as the looking glass self. Using the view of others, Cooley denotes that understanding of self is socially constructed. Through social interaction, one's sense of self is mirrored from the judgments they receive from others to measure their own worth, values, and behavior. This process also involves the following steps. First is an individual in a social situation imagines how they appear to others. That individual imagines others' judgment of that appearance. And the last one is the individual develops feelings of pride or shame and responds to those perceived judgments. So, self has also private, public, and collective. First is private self or the individual self is the cognition that involves traits, states, and behaviors. It is an assessment of the self by the self. Next is the public self. It is the cognition concerning the generalized others. It corresponds to the assessment of the self by the generalized others. Last one is the collective self. It is the cognition concerning a view of self that is found in memberships in social group. Social identity theory. The social identity theory has been defined as the person's sense of who she or he is according to his or her membership to a certain group. Group membership, according to the social identity theory, is an important source of pride and self-esteem. These social groups, developed by William Graham Sumner, are further divided into two, the in-group and the out-group. So the in-group is an esteem of social group commanding a member's loyalty. It is the group to which a person belongs. Next is an out-group is a scorned social group to which one feels competition or opposition. This is a group to which a person does not belong. So next is the self from anthropology perspective. So first, what is anthropology? So anthropology is the study of human societies and cultures and their development. Anthropology employs a holistic approach to the study of the self. Anthropology employs a holistic approach to the study of the self by integrating various models in a broader framework, by considering what each model brings, and by showing the interactions among them. So anthropology is concerned with how cultural and biological processes interact to shape human experience. Kin refers to the self as the totality of what an organism is physically, biologically, socially, and culturally. Irving likewise says self encompasses the physical organism, all aspects of psychological functioning and social attribute. So self as embedded in culture. Culture is the set of unwritten norms of conduct that guide the behavior of a group. According to Edward Taylor, culture is a complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man. Self-concept refers to all understanding and knowledge of oneself. The component of self-concept includes psychological, physical, and social attitudes, ideas, and beliefs that one has. The most influence in terms of self-concept is family history, basically referring to the culture one has been brought up in and the experiences he or she has undergone. So, there are also material and non-material of culture. So sociologists describe two interrelated aspects of human culture: the physical objects of culture and the ideas associated with these objects. Material culture refers to the physical objects, resources, and spaces that people use to define their culture. This includes homes, neighborhoods, cities, schools, church, synagogues, temples, mosques, offices, factories, and plants, tools, means of production, goods and products, stores, and so forth. So, all of these physical aspects of a certain culture help to define its members' behaviors and perceptions. For example, technology is a vital aspect of material culture in today's Filipino society. Students in highly urbanized cities must learn to use computers to survive in school, in contrast to young people in ethnic societies who must learn to build weapons and hunt for a living. So next is the non-material culture. It refers to the non-physical ideas that people have about their culture, including beliefs, values, rules, norms, morals, language, organizations, and institutions. For instance, the non-material concept of religion consists of a set of ideas and beliefs about God, worship, morals, and ethics. These beliefs then determine how the culture responds to its religious topics, issues, and events. So, when considering non material culture, sociologists refer to several processes that a culture uses to shape its members' thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Four of the most important of these are symbols, language, values, and norms. So, there are two anthropological perspectives of the self. First is the egocentric, a concept of the self where the self is seen as an autonomous and distinct individual. Next is the sociocentric. According to this view, there is no intrinsic self that can possess enduring qualities. So, there are also cultural relativism, ethnocentrism, and xenocentrism. So, cultural relativism is the idea that a person's beliefs, values, and practices should be understood based on that person's own culture that rather be judged against the criteria of another. A person's beliefs, values, and practices are relative to the individual within his own social context. What is considered moral in one society may be considered immoral in another. Ethnocentrism is the belief that one's culture is superior to that of others. So, ethnocentrism is a concept in anthropology that refers to the tendency of individuals to view their own culture, ethnic group, or nation as superior to others. It's a way of seeing the world through the lens of one's own culture, and it often leads to belief that one's own way of life is the most natural or correct way to live. For example, an ethnocentric person might judge other cultures based on the standards and norms of their own culture. They might view certain practices in other cultures as strange, primitive, or even wrong, simply because they're different from what they're used to. Next is the xenocentrism. It is the thinking that others' culture is superior to one's culture. It is a, there are tendency to value other cultures more highly than one's own. It is the opposite of ethnocentrism, which means to value one's own culture more than the other's culture. Xenocentrism can manifest in different ways, such as preferring the cultural practices, products, styles, or values of other cultures and societies. So, no culture is perfect for each culture because its own plus and minus points. The proper thing to do then is to put into practice cultural relativism. For example, never judge others' culture based on one's own culture, but rather to see others' cultural practice and belief in the light of their culture. So that's it. Thank you.